Hello, I'm Todd Gatewood, photo archivist and film restoration specialist. Let's talk about the Patterson Gimlin film and do a deep dive part 3. You know, I probably should have started out where I'm gonna start today on this deep dive 3, so no worries, okay? But we're gonna start out trying to understand and understanding fully the film site so you can get familiar with it. And that's one of the first places that anyone should really start. But before we go there, I wanna say thanks for watching, but I've noticed that most of you who are watching are not subscribed, like 90%. Please help me out and just hit that subscription button and subscribe. If you can spare a like, thank you. I really need it, and it will help motivate me and get this algorithm up and this video out there. You guys have tuned in, and by the end of this video, you're gonna know more about the Patterson film than 99.9% of the people out there. And you're gonna understand the Patterson film. I know that's why you're here. You're curious like I am. I've been lifetime curious about it, trying to understand it, trying to get the picture in my mind how it all works. And you really have to start at the beginning. And that very beginning is knowing the area where it was filmed. Now, I gotta tell you, there is a content creator out there named Lazy Cowboy. I love his website. He's a very nice guy. We communicate in private, and he's provided me with a lot of material to show you guys today in regard to this, but I want you to go to his channel too, Lazy Cowboy. The link is down below in the description, and like and subscribe for him and check out his videos. They're awesome on the subject. And I know you're here for the Patterson film, and he is interested in the Patterson film too. So let's take a look and get started at looking at where the film was shot and what the terrain looks like, because the film jumps around. Roger gets off his horse and he's running with the camera, and his finger slips off the trigger just a couple times. There's a lot of motion going on. The terrain undulates, and Patty just casually walks across. So we're gonna take a look at this whole scene so it makes more sense what you're looking at on the film. And then we're gonna dive into the film itself, and I'm gonna show you some beautiful stuff you have not seen. We'll have a little recap of what we have seen. I won't make it that long, and we'll get on into the new material. I know that's why you're here, so thank you. Let's get into it. So let's start right here with this amazing graphic done once again by Lazy Cowboy. Please go over to his YouTube channel and like and subscribe. What you're seeing is an overhead version. It's an animated 3D version of the Patterson film site. It was made using meticulous measurements and forestry maps, as well as topography maps, so that the hills and the terrain is accurate, as well as the shadows. And I know this is important. The shadowing is set to October 20th, 1967 at 3 p.m. approximately. And you'll notice the shadows are exactly as in the film. So let's start out, and it's color coded, and you'll notice there's a baby blue dot that shows Roger Patterson's film view of Patty. If you go where that dot is, where it says Roger's frame 352 location, and go straight down to the B in Cowboy, where it says graphics by Lazy Cowboy, the B is right where the filming started. That's the road that they were riding up along. And that's where Roger got off of his horse and began filming. And then he ran forward across the creek and captured the part that we see, frame 352, from that position. It's worthy to note that when this started out, and it was at the very beginning, notice where Patty, the beginning of Patty is filmed. She's on the angle of the bank, and then she goes up. Right where the film starts, if you look behind that, you'll notice how dark the forest is. It just so happens there's a little draw in there, and it was against the sunlight, and so it was very dark. So when she starts walking, there's a very dark background in it, and that also has to do with the Kodak film and the speed that it was, and it was made for very bright daylight. So it didn't do well in shadowing. It did great in bright daylight. So anything that was shadowed may tend to be overshadowed with that type of film that was made by Kodak. So anyway, we move along, and we know that was Kodachrome 2. Anyway, I felt like I should say that. Someone will want to point it out. So let's take a look at this, and there's several components of this. If you look in the bottom right corner, you'll notice Renee DeHenden's photo of the film site shortly after it was filmed. So we know that's where it's at. We have that record of it. And if you'll look, the green shows where he took that photo. Now, Patty started walking there at the beginning of the yellow line, and then where the film ends, right there where it turns purple, is where it's Patty's Path, according to Bob Gimlin, also known in that area as the bowling alley. What I find fascinating is that she walked down that bowling alley and then crossed, and then as you can see, she came back around, and then that other shade of magenta where it says Patty's Path, according to Bob Titmus, there were tracks cast there, and it appears that she came back to watch the guys as they surveyed the scene and casted tracks and did all that stuff, which I find interesting. Now, it's worth noting, people had been in this area quite a bit. There's loggers that were down in here. This is right next door to the Hoopa Reservation. The Hoopa residents are in this area. Bigfoot or Sasquatch that live in this area are not unaccustomed to humans. They've seen them. They know what they are. So her being surprised by one and casually walking off really doesn't surprise me a bit. She was in her home turf. It's probably happened before. There's other people that have seen her or she's been seen. And it wasn't a thing for her. So this is what's important. And then you can see, of course, frame 352 in the blue outline next to Renee's photo. But this gives you an idea as the film unravels which way she's walking and how it went. Because people want to say, well, was it splice? No, it wasn't splice. Roger's finger slipped off the trigger several times. And he was running, and that could happen. But it was a spring-wound camera. It did have a battery for a light meter, but that wasn't necessary at all for its function. It was more of an analog meter for the operator to set the aperture and choose his lens. So you get an idea here, a very good overhead idea, how this film went. And you can see down where the bee and cowboy is, where it started, and Roger runs across the creek to the beginning of that yellow line, goes up to where his dot is, and then we have the path of Patty. So I think it's very important that you see this, that you kind of memorize it in your head, and just have a good overall familiarity with it, because you can't understand this film if you don't know the terrain of the film. It doesn't make sense because it's very flat and two-dimensional looking at times, and so we don't get an idea of the area around us. And this is a beautiful idea of it, taken from historic photos, using the most modern mapping and illustration techniques. Lazy Cowboy's just done a beautiful job here. Now, let's take a look at an animation that Lazy Cowboy did, that what you would have seen, let's say, if you were a drone floating over the film site as it was being filmed. Let's watch and enjoy.
In 1967, the 20th of October, myself and Bob Gimlin were going into Northern California area. It's in the Humboldt County, and this is about 40 miles back in the wilderness. The nearest little settlement is a town called Orleans. There's approximately 17,000 square miles in there that are unmapped, and it's a very primitive area, very rugged area. We had been in this area trying to find evidence of the giant creatures called Bigfoot or Sasquatch. They went to this particular area because a month before this, they had found 3 different sets of tracks.
So this is the area of the Six Rivers National Forest in Northern California, hovering over a section of Bluff Creek as it would have looked back in 1967. This aerial shot's a recreation of the image taken in the early 70s by Renee DeHenden from directly over a portion of Bluff Creek, which is featured in the Patterson Gimlin film footage and was used as a reference guide in conjunction with historical maps and sketches and local images and knowledge and drone footage and terrain data gathered from Google Earth to create this 3D model of the Bluff Creek landscape as it would have looked that day back in 1967. It's hard to imagine how it all looked back then, as the camera tends to make everything appear closer. But with this model, we're going to finally get a better perspective on the surroundings as we retrace Roger and Bob's path from the moment the camera was first turned on that day to the moment Patty was immortalized and the film ran out. All right, so let's take a trip back to Bluff Creek in time. Just 3 years before the film was shot, 1964, Christmas, when floods triggered landslides that scarred and stripped sections of the surrounding hillsides and ripped trees away from the creekside and creating large expanses of flat alluvial floodplains that scattered the forest with debris made up of tree trunks, branches, logs, and root balls.
The days are fairly shortened, and last of September or 1st of October. On a Saturday on October 20th, 1967, we decided to go a lot further back, about 35 miles further back. And so we took a little pack horse and started out shortly after lunch.
First of all, you showed some routine film of your pack horses, didn't you?
Right.
Now, what were you doing filming at that particular time on the pack horse bit?
Well, we hadn't taken any of that particular area there before, and some of these...
You were just taking odd shots then, weren't you?
Just taking some shots of the scenery and of myself and Bob.
When the camera is turned on again, Bob is seen south of a huge mudslide riding north, where we get a good look at the shadows being cast by Bob's horse as they traverse the old flood debris. Note that the shadows falling west to east indicate a time of approximately 3 p.m. for the 20th of October, 1967, the film date, which seems reasonable if their camp was 4 miles away and they left at 1:30, as Bob Gimlin states.
We left camp about 1:30 in the afternoon. A sunny, real sunny day, and we got everything packed up in the little pack horse and ate lunch and everything and got started out. And of course Roger was riding in front of me all this time. We were only about 4 miles from where our camp was.
The shot ends with a long pan up left, up the slide, highlighting the power and effect that a mudslide can have on the landscape. So while we're here, let's just go take a trip up that mudslide and get a better view of the surroundings. We can see log jams. We can see forest debris strewn everywhere. And it gives us a better perspective of just how open this section of the creek was coming down the slope. And coming down the slope, we can see a rocky plug. It's directly in front. It still causes large log jams to this very day. And we begin to get an idea now why Roger had no film left for when it really mattered. They were riding on that relaxed day. The cowboys were just messing around, filming each other, riding among the turning colors of the trees.
And that was my 36th birthday, so we were just enjoying the sunshine and the beautiful colors, fall colors of the leaves and the maple leaves and the trees. And Roger was riding in front of me and taking pictures. So we were just enjoying the day and having a good time, and not really thinking about anything but just how pretty, how beautiful it was for October 20th, you know.
And the days were fairly short. We were getting into October then, you know, the first and second part of October, or the first part of October. And so that particular Saturday was a really beautiful, sunshiny Saturday. But by then, the leaves in the fall were starting to turn yellow and red, and the oaks and the underbrush and along the creek. So we left out of there, and of course we were riding along, sunshiny day, warm, and Roger was riding in front of me, and he was occasionally filming me back, followed him, and then he filmed the side of the hills with all the beautiful colors of the fall in it.
In this final section of film, before we see Patty, is of Bob riding east upstream, and it gives us a good glimpse of the temporary logging road that parallels the creek all the way to and beyond the film site. There's this sandbar, and it's a temporary unsurfaced cap trail road that was periodically bulldozed and gravelled to allow access for logging operations in the summer season. Until the October road would have been easily drivable by a Jeep or even a logging truck. And once over and onto the south side of the creek, you begin to see a large, expansive floodplain in the area that was used by the loggers as a logger's landing and to store, pile, and process and reclaim logs that were cleared from the flood damage, along with makeshift corrals for the horses, which the remnants of can still be seen today. So as we move past this area that we're in now, we're going to be getting into the narrower, shadier part of the creek, and Roger may have not liked this area to film in, so he was saving his film. And we move eastward until the landscape opens back up, and you see a flat, open sandbars. And as the landscape begins to open up, Roger and Bob would have ridden past a big gulch and a seasonal wet water stream on their right, which crosses the old Bluff Creek Road that they were following. And if you want to go up the slope for a better view, you can see large open areas of sandbar leading into a creek, and then you can see the bend on the left that was once believed to be the film site once upon a time. So this is the area that we're in, and it would be the last area that they saw as they began to head northeast and in the direction where Patty was, or is technically. So as we move along through these areas, we're beginning to see where it's all going to start happening. So as Roger and Bob rounded the bend before finally filming the Patty and passing the root ball, we can see how it opens up, and the approach towards the site would have been just like at the time when they filmed it. So let's let Bob and Roger tell us as it happened in their own words.
So we just come around what was a big downfall root system of a big tree, and it was about 8-10 feet up. And the creature was standing just about 30 or 40 feet on the other side of the creek.
I caught something out of the corner of my eye, and my horse immediately reared on me, probably pulled him half over, fell with me, and as he got up, I was able to get up and control him until I went around the other side and got the camera out of the saddlebag, and then I turned my horse loose. And then it started moving away from us, walked up the bank and turned around, looked at us again, and I was able to get into my saddlebags and get my camera out and start shooting pictures.
And the creek was only about a little over a foot deep, probably 18 inches deep, and 20 feet across.
When it ran across the creek, I was able to come up on the other side, and I got some fairly good pictures.
Roger had the camera to his eye, so he stumbled and fell down, stabilized himself, and started getting the good, decent film footage that you see. He hollered at me and said, "I've got to relocate, Bob." So I rode across the creek, stepped down off the horse. Roger just got to where he was going to film again. She turned her head as she's walking, never turned the body, just turned the head, and looked at me when I stepped down off the horse.
Was making kind of a big moon-shaped walk to go with the flow of the land, of the mountains, and the way the creek ran here.
I didn't follow her any much further than when my camera ran out of film, and I knew that it was out, and Bob got on his horse and went after her then.
I wanted to get back on the horse. I started to get on, and Roger said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to follow it." He said, "Bob, I ran out of film."
How were you able to follow her?
I watched her until she went up a road about 300 yards.
Was that the time you broke off the chase, you might say?
Right, that was when I last seen her go around the curve.
Let's take a look at the site from up on the slope to the east. And this open slope was probably caused by a landslide, and it's where Rene DeHenden took his famous photo overlooking the film site back in 1971 when he was researching and surveying the area. This photograph remains the single most important image now in understanding the appearance of the sandbar in the aftermath of the filming. And if we go back down and looking north into a narrow straight section of the creek known as the bowling alley with its imposing steep slopes on each side, we can get a view of the hillside area where Bob Titmus believes Patty returned to watch Roger and Bob cast her tracks later that day.
Roger wanted to go catch his horse to get a poncho off to get underneath it to put film back in his camera, because this was in the afternoon, about 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Roger got underneath the poncho, and I said, "Well, let's go where we last saw it and see if we might be able to see it again." So we went up a tributary of the creek the way it went, and we didn't see nothing but scuffs in the gravels where it walked, and tipped them over and the dampness was up.
Right.
And we got up there, probably 450 yards or maybe a little farther, and we saw where it had stepped on a big flat rock with a wet foot, and there was half of a footprint on that rock, and then it apparently went right up to the cliffs and up on top of another ridge and mountain. And we found out later on from Bob Titmus that it traveled back down that ridge and apparently sat there and watched us do all of the filming of the footprints and the different things that we did after the sighting that Roger had got filmed back in the camera.
All right, now's about as good a time as any to ask you again to please subscribe. Most of you are not subscribed to this channel, and it really helps me out. So that's all you have to do if you want to keep enjoying this content. and I'll keep bringing it to you, promise you. So subscribe, like, it helps me out. If you can even share, that'd be great. I want to also say, if you want to buy me a cup of coffee, you know, I do all this on my own with no sponsorship. So if you want to help me out, there's a link down below to PayPal me a gift. Christmas is coming and the holidays are upon us. And speaking of which, gifts, there's a ton of gifts at my store. Find the link below, merch, over 37 items between the sizes, colors, and shapes. That's 1,000 different choices for you. Please check it out. You can buy all the prints that you see that I've done, the best copies in the world. They look even better in person, printed, and I know you all have asked me about that, so you've got a place to go get it. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for following this channel and liking. I appreciate it so much. Let's get back into the deep dive into the Patterson film, part 3. Well, we started with the first frame, showing the stream at the left. And then we went on, after we established that was a stream through looking at footage of the stream flowing, we went on to examine some other features of Patty. And we just kind of marveled at some of these screens in parts 1 and 2. We took a look at her heel and her toe and the flexibility that they have. We looked at the heel and the toe bending up as well as the calves flexing. If anyone's jumping in right now, I didn't put this in motion just in case you hadn't seen it. You need to go back and look. Anyway, now we have another picture of her here in full motion. I think this is a great slide. You can see her sole of her foot, the dirt on the inside of it, some of the creases even where the ball of the foot is, where the mid-tarsal break happens. And then we looked at frame 352. This is the best frame going of it. I took a lot of time in restoring this, and it gives us a clear picture of Patty, a clear picture of the type of person or personage that a Sasquatch is. I mean, after all, that's what it is. You can't say that's a monkey. There's no way. It's definitely a type of person, to be determined. We don't know. These are some of the last frames where we see her, and I circled her. This is probably the last clearest good frame from the middle part of the film. And then I'm going to show you what are called the throwaway film frames that people don't even show. But I've circled her in those so you can see where she's still at and that she's progressing through it. There's a full frame version, and she's passing behind that tree, as you can plainly see. You can identify the landmarks from the previous frames and place her quite well. There she is. This is probably standard for today's Bigfoot photos, something about on this level. This much blur. But people know what they see. It's the camera's fault. And then this frame, very important frame. It spurred a whole episode with Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum and I. People throw this away all the time. It's her first coming into view between the trees, and it proves that she's still in motion, still walking. And then here, this frame, the middle frame of it, where you see her right foot and the sole of her foot. It's absolutely beautiful. And most people throw it away and they don't even pay attention to it. Kind of troubled me, so I put together this whole thing for Dr. Meldrum, and he and I had a great time before and after the show talking. But we talked about this, and here you can see Patty walking quite clearly. She's still walking. You can see her foot flex. You can see her calves, the muscles in her legs. It's all there. You should marvel at it because they just throw these frames away. They really don't want you to see something. Clearly see the soles of her heels and feet, calf muscles flexing. It's fantastic. It's hard for me to believe that people would get rid of it. Now I'm going to take you to one of the last parts of the film, the very last part. I'm going to jump up to it. Roger has zigzagged back to a location where he was originally filming, and we're going to watch Patty as she exits. In just regular speed, we're going to see how she moves. We're going to study her muscles so you can see. Most of you guys just see a little dot when you watch this, but this is to show you how good it is. Just how fantastic this footage is. She's walking. You can still see her muscle groups from the farthest vantage point that we have of her. It's hard to get over, but folks, what a great film. We're already looking at it better than anyone has before or shown you. You got to ask yourselves why. Why didn't they want me to see something? And what didn't they want me to see? Well, have an idea what they don't want you to see. They don't want you to see that. That terrified them. This mortifies them. But there you go. You're looking at her. That's a type of person. That's a Sasquatch. You don't need a scientific committee to tell you anything. You just need to know how we should proceed forward, going forward. They are superior to us. They are the masters of the forest. We need to show them great respect.